What is going on, YouTube? It is Primitive here, and today I'm going to be bringing you another BT8 deck list profile. Today we're going to be going over Armor Rush, the deck that I was very excited for. I really love VMon and all these VMon-centric decks that we got going into this format, so I had to go ahead and get some Armor Rush going. Have been able to test this deck a little bit now. It is still very early in the format. We don't even have the cards here in NA yet, so this deck is not completely optimal. There's still going to be a lot of testing to be done, but this is a deck that does have a decent amount of sets being tested in it from myself, as well as our buddy Jesse also been testing this list, and so I just want to go and bring it all to you here, so that way if you need a deck list to start day one, we do have this tested deck list for you, and I'll go ahead and break it down for you. Now, last time I uploaded the Flamedramon deck list here on DigimonCard.dev, I did have some people ask me to go ahead and hover over some of the cards so that the card text can come up, so that way some of the new cards, if they don't know what it does, they'll get a better explanation. So getting on into it, we are going to go ahead and switch screens when going over this deck list, but yeah, with that being said, let's go straight on into it. Alright, so starting off with the list, we will just start off with the Digitama. We are just going to be playing the 4 Upamon here. I'm not sure if you necessarily need a 5th egg. We were testing the Demi Vmons that give DP boost, and they felt rather useless. Getting the draw off of the Upamon is definitely going to be a little bit more impactful. Even if you don't always get the draw off the Upamon, having the ability to draw when you can is going to be a lot better than just having a 1k, maybe 2k DP boost from the Inheritable. So I do like the Upamon. Don't really know if you need a 5th egg. If you find that you go to your 5th egg a lot, you could definitely throw in a 5th egg. There's a lot of different eggs that you can play that are going to be nice, but I just like the Upamon at 4. You're so aggressive that a lot of times you're going to be able to get through the game with just the 4 eggs that you have, and I think Upamon is the best. Now getting on into the rookies, we are just playing 16 Vmon, 4 of each here. So starting off, we are going to go into the Vmon. The jamming Vmon here is going to be very good, very early. You're going to be able to have jamming, get early checks in. This card was one that people were talking about, maybe potentially a little bit weaker, but I think in Armor Rush it's going to be very strong because of its interaction with Fire Rocket. If you do have an armor on top of this Vmon and you go for Fire Rocket and swing and it goes down in security, you will Armor Purge down to this Vmon. However, you will still have the remaining security checks from the Fire Rocket with jamming now, because you're now at the jamming Vmon. So I've had very cool interactions with that where you will swing in, and even though your Digimon does go down, instead of it just going down next check because it's a 2k rookie, it will survive because it does have jamming, and you could potentially go into another armor like Magna or something after to unsuspend it. So it is a very nice little good card. Next, we're going to be having a 4 of the BT8 Vmon. This one might be one of the weaker ones in my opinion. It does search the top 4 and grab a 2-color blue Digimon, so that does hit pretty much all of our armors, which is going to be very good. The one of the things though is that you just kind of draw so much and you have so many armors that you're going to kind of hit them pretty consistently, but I didn't really like a lot of the other Vmons in this slot. I decided I would rather just go for searchers, so that way I can up the consistency. But if you do plan on cutting down on Vmons, I'll probably cut down on this one just because it's not quite as strong. Then we're going to be getting into 4 of the starter deck 8 Vmon. This one is very good early game. You do have the Inheritable of when attacking, if you have 7 or fewer cards in your hand, you get to draw 1, so you can very easily put an armor on top of this. Turn 1, turn 2, start to swing in and get extra draws very early, and you can even pair that with Upamon if they have something with no sources on their board. So it's just really good early draw and consistency, be able to get cards into your hand, so I really like it here. Sometimes you do get 8 or more cards in your hand because of all of the draw and search in this deck, and so sometimes you don't get the effect off of it, but you're going to be able to get the effect consistently enough that it's going to be strong in here. So I do like it just playing at 4, so that way you can try to find it on your first or second stack and try to get full value off of it. Then to finish off the rookies, we're going to be getting into 4 of the starter deck 9 Vmon. This one is going to just be very consistent. It's reveal the top 3, add a Digimon with 3 units traits to your hand, which is most of the Digimon in the list, our armors, our Vmons, and stuff like that. You're going to be able to very consistently hit off of this, and so being able to have a rookie that's going to be able to replace itself in your hand is going to be very strong, because then you can have a rookie on board to then swing in and get early aggression checks, which is going to help later in the game, while also just being able to keep your hand size as big as possible, so that way you have as many options as possible. So I really like this Vmon. I think this is pretty stable at 4. Now go ahead and get on into the champions. We'll start here on the left. We are going to be playing 2 of the Kumamon. Kumamon here is just kind of a finisher. There were a lot of times in this deck where I was just thinking either I was playing this deck or I was playing against this deck, and the consensus of this deck needs a hybrid was pretty consistent, and so we decided to put in the Kumamon. Kumamon is going to be a little bit better than Lobomon, because I did put Lobomon in my Imperial list, but that's because it was strictly just a finisher, so its effect didn't really matter, as to where with Kumamon, being able to trash the bottom Digivolution source will be helpful in multiple matchups, including the mirror match, because that that way you could strip a source, and then you can trade something like your Raidramon into their Raidramon, and then you'll be able to armor purge, and they won't because you stripped their source and stuff like that. So it is nice, but it's mostly just a finisher. We just decided to go with the hybrid that has the better when digivolving effect, in case you do need to digivolve early, but it's just a finisher. I decided to put it at 2 instead of 1 because if it's in your security, if it's at the bottom of your deck, you're not really going to see it very often, but I do think the finisher is very optimal. I was playing this without hybrids, and it just felt like there were so many times where you'd get your opponent down to 0, and then they would be able to stabilize on the board, be able to maybe clear the board, and then have enough time to be able to go in for game. But having a Kumamon in hand is going to pretty much solve that problem, so having it at 2. Now getting on to the armors, we are going to be having 4 Raidramon. I am a Raidramon kind of guy here. So Raidramon is kind of one of the weaker armors just because suspending one of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon in this deck isn't as crazy. Yes, if you're playing against a bunch of rookies and stuff, being able to suspend that is nice. If you're playing against Imperial and they have Stingmon or XVmon, and being able to suspend that and swing over is very nice. But since this deck is a little bit more aggressive focused, having a kind of more defensive card like this isn't as powerful, but it's still very good. It's going to be a blue-green, which is very good for getting into later some of the option cards that we do have. So I do like the 4 Raidramon. I think it's just good consistent, but it's just I don't really go into this as often if I can go into some of my other armors, just because I find this to be a little bit more of the defensive card than an offensive card. Then we're going into Flamedramon, who is our more aggressive armor here. When attacking, gain 3k DP, going up to 8. So you compare this with Fire Rocket. You can also do very interesting things where if you go into Flamedramon and swing and it goes down, you could go into another Flamedramon, suspending Davisken to unsuspend, and then swing again, and then you're going to have a 6k DP boost. And it's just going to be very nice. This card just works really well when you need to get aggressive. It just synergizes so well with Flame Rocket, and I just love Flamedramon so much. It's such a sick Digimon. So I'm very happy that this card is good. And then to finish off our armors, we are going to be playing 3 Magnamon. Magnamon I was playing at 4 for a little bit, but decided to cut it down to 3 because it is a little bit clunky. But Magnamon is just so insanely powerful. Yes, it has blocker, which is very cool. It is, like I said, with Raidramon, I wasn't the biggest fan of defensive cards, and this is kind of the defensive card because it has blocker and also has Wind Digivolving. You unsuspend this Digimon, then you gain plus 2k DP for every armor in your trash, and so it is a defensive card, but it's way more of an offensive card in my opinion. Being able to go into something that will unsuspend your Digimon naturally if you don't have Davisken out is going to be very good, because then you can swing in with something. Let's say you swing in with one of your armors, it goes down in security, then you can pass turn going into Magnamon, unsuspend that Digimon, and then you're going to have a 9, 11, 13k blocker, however big it gets. But this card is just so very crucial in the Imperial Dramon matchup. As somebody who plays a lot of Imperial, this is the card that I don't want to see the most because it's just so hard to get over. You can't get over it with Imperial or a Pyildramon. They'll be able to block if you swing in with Pyildramon because it's just going to be so big. And so this is kind of like the main card in that matchup in my opinion. So I wanted to try to keep it at 3 or 4 since Imperial is going to be so big that being able to have this blocker out to really slow them down, and also have a blocker that plays around Pyildramon's DNA Digivolve effect, is going to be very good. So we are just chilling at 3 Magnamon, and that is going to finish up the armors. It is Armor Rush, so we're just going to be rushing, and this is kind of our main base that we went over. So let's go ahead and go into what is extra in the deck. So now we are just playing 2 level 5s with the Chimeramon here. Chimeramon is just, if you get the 2 level 4s out, you can DNA Digivolve into this. You do have yellow, blue, red, and green as options to be able to get under Chimeramon because of your dual colors, so you can get up to the 4 colors to get its effect. But mostly it's just a kind of wide board clear. It's really good in the mirror match. It's good versus just general armor stuff to be able to give minus DP, and it's also just good to be able to, let's say you just go Chimera, you give minus 3, 4k DP to some of your opponent's Digimon, and then next turn they're not going to be able to have as crazy of turns because all their Digimon are relatively weak. So I do like the Chimera at 2. I don't think it's the most crucial card in the list. You could definitely change this. I have seen some lists that play Pyildramon. You could definitely do that as well. I just like the Chimeramon because if we're playing an aggressive style deck, then what I'm going to be more worried about is other aggressive decks being able to kind of out-aggress me. So I just like the Chimeramon a little bit more since it does have a kind of wide minus DP effect, which can board clear. So do like Chimeramon there, and that's just going to be our only level 5. Then to getting into our options, we are playing the 1 Ice Wall. Not much to say here. If we could play it at 4, we would, but it's restricted to 1. Just a very, very strong card. If you're playing blue, you should probably be playing Ice Wall. Then we're going to have 4 Hammer Spark. I say this every time, but this is probably the most versatile card in the deck. It's an insane defensive card, also very good offensive card, being able to kind of progress your plays. So I want to play this at 4, especially with things like Davis and Ken in the deck. If your armor goes down, you can Hammer Spark up to Digivolve into another armor, use Davis Ken to unsuspend, get more aggression going. It just allows you to get a lot more going in this deck. It also allows you to play around opposing things, like let's say you're playing against Imperial, you're at 1 memory, and you want to play around opponent's Hammer Spark and security. Well, you can gain memory off your own Hammer Spark and stuff like that. It's just a very versatile card. It's very strong, and I really like Hammer Spark at 4. Then we're going to play 2 Megadeth, which I think is the kind of questionable slot in the list. Megadeth, you do need a blue and green source on the board, and the technical only green sources that we have in the deck are the Davis and Ken and the Flamedramon. But in my experience, the consistency of getting Davis and Ken out is high enough to where it's very rare that Megadeth isn't going to be able to proc from your hand, but I can see that with the lower green count that this might be a little inconsistent and you might consider changing it. Megadeth is just a super strong card, and being able to have the green-blue sources in Flamedramon and Davis Ken is going to be very good. This can help you in a lot of matchups, especially versus bigger matchups like Magnamon and stuff, being able to get things off the board. It's also just a great security effect. Being able to suspend a Digimon and then return one to the hand is just always going to be very strong, so I wanted some sort of removal in this deck because it does lack removal outside of like Chimeramon, so went with the Megadeth here. But if you did want to try to up the consistency, you could try to fit in Dino Bees into the list. You could, or not Dino Bees, I'm sorry, Stingmons. You could put Stingmons in the list, maybe cutting out the Kumamon, one of the Kumamons, to put it in a Stingmon that will allow you to have another green source that you can play for the reduced cost of 3, so you have higher consistency. But like I said, in my experience, this the 3 Davis Ken and the 4 Flamedramon is going to be good enough, so Megadeth is our removal option. Now getting on into our armor option cards, we're going to have 3 of the Fire Rocket. This is going to give you security attack +1 to one of your Digimon with 2 or more colors, and so this is going to be very good with things like Flamedramon. For example, it also works kind of like with the Vmon interaction with the jamming Vmon that I went with earlier. So this is just aggressive card. You want to go Flamedramon, you want to go 1-2 Fire Rockets, go for big swings, potentially unsuspend on the same turn so you can get more swings later and stuff like that. This card is very good. It does have kind of a borderline useless security effect. I wouldn't say it's necessarily useless, but there's just not as many blockers in the metagame. Yes, you can get rid of things like Magnamon, which is going to be great, but other than that, there's not a lot of blockers in the metagame, so the security effect won't happen as often, but being able to have security attack +1 for 1 on your armor Digimon is going to be very strong. So I just played at 3. 4 felt too clunky. You never really want to play more than like 2, maybe 3 a game. 1 or 2 is usually kind of the number that I hit with Fire Rockets per game, so I decided to cut it down to make more room. But having the security attack +1 is going to be good. We are an aggressive deck, so it just makes sense. Now we're going to go ahead and get into 3 of the Armor Texture. Armor Texture was a card that I was playing at 4, but it felt very clunky. It is a very strong card. The security effect, being able to play a level 3 Digimon with free, so essentially a Vmon, is going to be very good. It helps with the aggression a lot. Any security trigger that lets you get more Digimon on the board in an aggressive deck is going to be good. But it is just a little bit clunky. You do get to play it for 0 to trash the top, be able to go into another armor, and then unsuspend it, swing again. It is going to be good, but it's another one of those cards like Fire Rocket where I didn't really see myself playing more than 1 or 2 a game usually, and if I had multiples in hand, they a lot of times felt dead. So I just like 3 as a good consistency number, and so I decided to put this and the Fire Rocket at 3 just because it felt better that way. At 4, it just does get a little bit more clunky, and by cutting both of them down to 3, it did make room for the 2 Megadeths, so it does work out in the end. Then to finish off the list, we're going to be getting into our Tamers. We have 3 Davis. This is going to be our memory Tamer. It's also going to have the amazing effect of on play. Search the top 3, grab a blue Digimon and a green Digimon. The only green Digimon that we can really grab is the Flamedramon, but you can double hit off of it if you do find a Flamedramon and count that as your green. But this card is just very strong. You don't really want to ever be below 3 memory with this list. You don't want to get choked because there's just so many things that you want to do with your armor and your Fire Rockets and stuff to where you have a lot of 2s and 1s going around, so you want to make sure that you have at least 3 memory. So this is going to help a lot. You just, like I said, you don't really want to get choked in basically any deck, and Davis just works so well with this list that there's no reason not to play it. Then to finish off the list, we're going to have 3 Davis and Ken. Davis and Ken is just very good at the start of your main phase, so after your hatching phase, you will gain a memory if you have a blue Digimon, and then gain a memory if you have a green Digimon, which is good. Extra memory is great, but in this specific list, a lot of the times we're looking more towards the secondary effect. When one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon with 2 or more colors, you get to unsuspend that Digimon by suspending the Tamer, and that's going to be very good because with Armor Digivolve, you're going to essentially swing in, you will go down to Armor Purge, and then you can go into another Armor Digimon, tap the Davis Ken to unsuspend, start swinging again. And so that's mostly what we're looking for here, is that constant aggression, being able to recycle our armors and be able to attack without the armor texture and being able to unsuspend. And so Davis Ken is just super good. Decided to play them both at 3 and 3, so that way we just hit them consistently. These games are kind of quick most of the time, so you're not usually going to get through a large majority of your deck. So by playing your Tamers at a little bit higher number, you have a higher chance of seeing them, whether you draw them or they come out of security. But you do want to be seeing 1 or 2 of these Davis Kens on the board, because it is just so crucial to getting the deck going and getting that offensive pressure. But that is going to be today's list, the Armor Rush list. If you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know your opinions down below, either on this deck, the changes you would make, the things that you like, what you're liking in BT8, whatever you want. I just want to know how you're feeling about this new metagame that we're about to go into. But with that being said, I will catch you all next time. I hope you have a fantastic day. Peace out.